Net neutrality, probably the biggest issue that none of you have ever heard of. So what is net neutrality? Net neutrality, or the idea of an open internet, right, would be an internet as it exists today. One where everyone has equal access and all information travels at the same speed. But the FCC is currently in talks to change net neutrality, to make it so that there's a tiered system where your Comcast and your Verizon can choose what information moves at what speed based on deals that they've made with those content providers. So an example of this would be similar to a UPS truck driving up to your house and delivering 2 packages. One of those packages they give to you immediately. The other package they hang on to. They deliver it later in the day because they've got an agreement with the first package company to expedite that. This is in essence what net neutrality is. And this is a problem because it would create a monopoly on the internet where existing companies that have all the money would be able to pay for this premium tiered service, and upstarts would not be able to. Imagine 10 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg in his dorm room creating Facebook, right? MySpace already existed. MySpace was the more popular website, but Facebook was a better website. If there was no net neutrality at that point in time, Mark Zuckerberg would never have been able to create the most powerful and popular social media website that exists today. MySpace would have paid for the premium speeds. Facebook wouldn't have been able to afford it, and then we, as the consumer, would have judged those 2 websites based on the speed that we were able to access them. Facebook would have been too slow, nobody would have used it, it never would have existed. And this is, we're talking about Netflix, Hulu, anything on the internet. Existing companies will have all the power. There will be no innovation, no new websites, nothing. Creates a monopoly. And sit here and say, well, that's not possible, that'll never happen. But it already has happened. This year, in February, Comcast was in talks with Netflix about the amount of bandwidth that Netflix users are taking up on Comcast's system. As these talks were taking place, Netflix speeds were crawling back in February, and they didn't pick back up again until early in March when Netflix and Comcast came to an agreement, which also coincides with when Netflix's prices went up for all of its users. So this affects everybody that is involved. Any increase in pricing and cost will be passed on to us as the consumer. So we sit here and we think monopolies, it's not possible. We've got, that's what the government's for. The FCC exists to prevent this type of thing from happening. But the current head of the FCC, Tom Wheeler, is the former head of the lobbying arm of the telecommunications industry. So the person who used to be in charge of pushing the telecommunication industry agenda in Washington, D.C., that same individual is now in charge of the oversight of how the telecommunications industry exists. And that's why the FCC is now in talks to allow these tech companies to start to look at a 2-tiered speed system. So what can we do to prevent this? Well, the most important thing you can do is get on the internet while you still can. Go to the FCC's website. Let them know what you, as a consumer, you as an individual, you as somebody that believes in an open and free internet, thinks about what they're trying to do.